So, hello everyone. And tonight I'm going to talk, sorry, some laughter in the room. Tonight I'm going to talk about assuming our powers. So it's a very deep subject, and I'm only going to touch on it very lightly. And I hope this will be interesting and helpful, but we'll see. So, begin by talking about snakes and fairy tales. Snakes often feature in fairy tales. Usually they're bad. Sometimes they are good. There's a beautiful story in which a boy spends all his money rescuing a cat, a dog, and a snake from the sea. And the snake turns out to be very helpful to him. Other stories tell of a snake who comes out of a hole in a wall. A child offers him milk. The snake, out of gratitude, fetches the child a coin, and this goes on day after day until the tale takes a different turn. One of the brothers Grimm's tales is like that, but eventually the child's mother catches the child encouraging the snake to eat breadcrumbs as well as drink milk. And the end of the tale goes like this. The mother, who was standing in the kitchen, heard the child talking to someone, and when she saw that she was striking a snake with her spoon, she's just doing that in order to get the snake's attention. The mother ran out with a log of wood and killed the good little creature. From that time forth, a change came over the child. As long as the snake had eaten with her, she had grown tall and strong, but now she lost her pretty rosy cheeks and wasted away. It was not long before the funeral bird began to cry in the night, and the redbreast to collect little branches and leaves for a funeral garland. And soon afterwards, the child, well, you can guess the rest. Another Grimm's tale goes like this. This is the whole story, and it's very short. An orphan child was sitting on the town walls spinning when she saw a snake coming out of a hole low down in the wall. Swiftly, she spread out beside this one of the blue silk handkerchiefs, which snakes have such a strong liking for, apparently, and which are the only things they will creep on. As soon as the snake saw it, it went back, then returned, bringing with it a small golden crown, laid it on the handkerchief, and then went away again. The girl took up the crown. It glittered and was of delicate golden filigree work. It was not long before the snake came back for the second time, but when it no longer saw the crown, it crept up to the wall and in its grief smote its little head against it as long as it had strength to do, until at last it lay there dead. If the girl had but left the crown where it was, the snake would certainly have brought still more of its treasures out of the hole. So as it is, this story doesn't make a lot of sense. Why doesn't the snake see the crown? I mean, she's only put it to the side. Why is it so upset when in fact it has given the girl the crown in the first place? Surely what is missing here is a passage where the child takes the crown home, and whoever is looking after her, as she's an orphan, her social workers maybe, they sell it for cash because they think that's the correct thing to do. The point is that the child should have put the crown on her own head. That is, she should have assumed her powers. When the snake saw that she hadn't done this, that she had misunderstood the purpose of the gift, and being a snake, she couldn't explain it in words, she was mortified. Here we can see a connection between the friendly snake and the so-called serpent power of the Kundalini. So tonight's talk is about assuming our powers or assuming our position as real Sahaja yogis and the importance of trying to do this. The first thing I want to say, I mean, I'm only experimenting here, thinking about these things, exploring these ideas. So the first thing I want to say is that there is a kind of inherent problem in the spiritual quest that we have. This is that we perceive the divine as over there or up there, as very, very different from us, much higher than us, and obviously so. Although, according to our ideas, we are at the same time the spirit, which is itself divine. Sometimes we are more identified with the spirit than at other times, but the point is that so long as we see the divine as completely other, we are still at that stage of seeking or of being in our infancy as realized souls. We try to behave correctly. We pray to God for things, for little boons or big ones. We apologize for our transgressions. We feel guilty in front of God, of our image of God. We behave rather like children in school, where God is the distant headmaster and we're very much at the stage of learning things. This kind of state becomes clearer when we look at what Jung's colleague, Marie-Louise von France, who I often refer to, I think she's a brilliant thinker. She called this state the feminine paradise. It's a state of affairs, generally speaking, where women get together in a small community, are very warm towards each other and make quilts and things like that. And there's a lot of talk about illnesses and problems, and they give each other mutual support and so on. Of course, men can be a part of this setup as well, but it's more society. In Sahaja Yoga, there's a more overtly spiritual aspect to this, with lots of requests for bandhans, for this and that and the other. It's a kind of left-sided heaven. It's a place where feelings are often confused with vibratory awareness. Sympathy is often confused with compassion. The intellect isn't particularly developed. There's not seen as any need to develop the intellect for various reasons, because it gives you an ego, or because if you want to know anything, you just have to feel the vibrations or something else. There can be a tendency to jump on bandwagons, especially if an element of guilt is involved. Black Lives Matter comes along, an obvious scam if ever there was one, and plenty of people in this feminine paradise pledge their support and bow down to it and whatever. But this paradise is all quite fragile. If someone says the wrong thing, it's very easy for someone else to get upset, and then there's a drama for a few days, and then order is restored for the time being. And it kind of goes round and round and stays at that level. One has the feeling that the father aspect or the masculine element is being shut out of this paradise. That's why von France calls it the feminine paradise. And because it's being shut out, it returns in a dangerous, frightening form, which then has to be shut out even more. Inside the feminine paradise, it looks very cozy at first, but this coziness is quite superficial. Look closer, and we find there's something more akin to a support group than a flourishing community about it. A certain amount of superstition is evident. God is out there, and he's an irascible, unaccountable, dangerous God. You never know what he'll do next. He has to be propitiated. So there's not really much evolution in this condition. Of course, I'm being very simplistic and quite insulting, and this is a caricature, but it exists. Then, although I don't think von France talks about this explicitly, there's also what can be called a masculine paradise. This is more of a political thing, or it's a matter of organization, a more abstract thing. a right-sided heaven, where people, more usually men, but these days it can involve women as well, project into the future and try and socially engineer a paradise. It's true, of course, that we need people to do the organizing, pay the accounts, arrange the seminars, and so forth. But if you're outside the magic circle of the important people who do this, it's only too apparent how easy it is to become corrupted by these positions and to feel that we are doing the work, that Sahaja Yoga depends upon us in a kind of a way, and that we are organizing it, and without us, it wouldn't be getting anywhere. This is the ego side of things, of course. In both cases, the feminine paradise on the left and the masculine one on the right, the security of being in the group or in the nest is very important. The feminine one looks and feels more like a nest, but the masculine one is also a nest of a sort, just the same. For example, in this masculine paradise, people like to give themselves or be given positions, titles, status. One effect of this is a consoling. If we're a leader or a coordinator or a counselor, then naturally we feel there must be something which we are leading, coordinating, or being a counselor of. There must be some real spiritual organization, and we're a part of it. We're on the right track. We're doing the right thing. We're in the nest, the group. We're among the saved. What's also noticeable about the goals of these in the feminine and masculine paradises is that they tend to be quite limited ones. We can say that our horizon is restricted as long as we remain in those nests. What do we want there? That we should be emotionally comfortable, if not actually pampered, and that we should be materially comfortable, if not living too luxurious and unspiritual a life. Beyond that, it can be pretty vague. The desire that other people should also be emotionally and materially comfortable, that there should be peace in the world, that everyone should worship Mother. Meanwhile, we use the powers given to us, bandans and shoe beating and so on, but it's as if we're using instruments, picking up the instrument, putting it down again. Not that we ourselves have become those instruments. We're using powers, but haven't yet assumed our powers, haven't integrated them into our conscious being. Also, while being in these nests may seem crucial to us, I've known of groups where every member has been given some title, like sort of leader of cooking or something like that. We don't necessarily see how unimportant this seems to people outside the nests. It isn't the group as such that is going to attract people to Sahaja Yoga. It's obviously our depth. It's the reality of our enlightenment. If seekers are going to be attracted by groups, then they're going to be drawn to the biggest group they can find, or the richest group, or the most long established, most conditioned and conditioning group, Catholicism or Buddhism or something, and not by our little local collectives. So that's a very, as I say, a simplistic, black and white way of trying to explain something, what I sometimes feel about our present situation and this eternal question of why we're not, more attractive to real seekers, why we're not putting down deeper roots and so on. So at some point we have to get out of the nest and fly. If one could put that in psychological terms, it's not at all an easy move to make because it involves, in a way, reconstructing our relationship with the divine without getting lost in sort of just branching out on our own, in getting lost in the ego or in some weird left-sided anarchy or something. Often it would seem that the mother bird has to push its child out of the nest, otherwise it simply won't grow properly. In theory, the baby bird, the child, should be able to grow up without any drastic intervention. But for some reason, this isn't always the case. So what does that pushing out of the nest entail in practical human terms? It could involve a rejection by the group. I don't say by the collective, although the group may very well call itself the collective and excommunicate those who it feels to be alien in some way. And of course, the group may sometimes be right to do this, but I've had enough experiences, seen enough, heard enough to know that often it isn't right to do it. At any rate, as the philosopher Simone Weil said, a phase of social rejection can be important in working out our spiritual transformation. I don't say we should seek out that social rejection, but it can be important in this process of spirituality. If that rejection happens, we're in a better position to see that the phase of being in the nest is just a phase, which becomes limiting after a while. We see that being thrown out of the group's nest isn't the end of everything. We see that there's actually nothing to be afraid of. There's a passage in a poem of my favorite poets, often quote, Milosz, Czesław Milosz, a poem for the end of the century. And this passage goes like this. To a saintly man, so goes an Arab tale. God said, somewhat maliciously, had I revealed to people how great a sinner you are, they could not praise you. And I, answered the pious one, had I unveiled to them how merciful you are, they would not care for you. There's something about this poem I feel is important, but it's hard to say exactly what. Why wouldn't people care for such a merciful God? Good question. I think the point is that if we remain at the level of children, if we always want to stay in that nest, in the security, then to some extent, an authoritarian God goes along with that state of affairs as part and parcel. We may not think we want such a God. We may talk about how loving God is and so on, but actually we want or we need that definite guidance, that firm setting out of the straight and narrow path of what's right and what's wrong, that superior clarity. Or even if we don't actively want it, we project it into the unknown area of God. We project that stern, rather stern, headmasterish figure. I'm not saying this is definitely how it is, I'm just exploring these ideas. But when we've left the nest, our perspective changes. We have a much larger view. Some of the things we were so concerned about and desperately abandoning while in the nest no longer seem important, or they might even appear counter to the deeper desire to become the spirit and to transform this world. And we begin to discover that truth is love and truth is mercy. There's no side to this love, as we say in English, meaning there's no sharp edge to it, no spite in it, no some little corner to it where, there's a little bit of darkness. It really is just love. But that's not to say that it leaves everything as it is. It smiles blandly at everyone, gives all the criminals we see around us a free pass, or that it puts up with all the darkness in the atmosphere and says, oh, well, it's just darkness. I love it all. It's not that. On the contrary, this love is intensely discriminating, knows how to correct, how to heal, how to comfort, and how to bring forth. Of course, we do not do these loving things. We do not think or feel that we are doing, except perhaps insofar as our attention goes to the problems around us or within us. It is, as we know, the Param Chaitanya, power of our mother, that does everything. So I'm going to ask Priti to play an extract from a Guru Puja talk in Sussex in 1983. This is the end of the talk, the last 6 or 7 minutes.
So this penetration starts by your meditation and sustenance of the meditation and the samadhi seed sprouting, manifesting the new dimension within. This sort of an attention one has to develop by watching the attention, chitta. As you watch your money, as you watch your road when you drive, as you watch your child when it is growing, as you watch the beauty of your wife or the care of your husband, all put together, you watch yourself, your attention. Where is it going? Where is it lagging behind? What is happening to my attention? Such people have no problems. You'll be surprised that such people, when they want to do something, it becomes dynamic. They can work it out. Nobody has any problem. And if there is a problem which you are facing all the time, and you then know that there's something wrong with you, something is wrong with the instrument. If you don't have a tin cutter and you start using a knife to cut a tin, it doesn't work out, then you'll say the tin is something wrong with the tin or something wrong with you. No, it's wrong with the instrument, and that instrument has to be correct. When the instrument is all right, after all, with all the powers you have, with all the blessings you have, and the source of power behind it, everything should work out. It should work out. You have had experiences of things working out. You have had experiences of many of miracles happening before your eyes. But still the attention has not settled down with those experiences. Still gatanubhavas, means the old experiences continue. Old identifications continue. Still continue with that. And the filth of that is still on your being. Change everything. Become a fresh new person. You are blooming out as a flower, and then as a tree, and assume your position. Assume your position as the Sahajogi. So this attention must be brought round. You judge yourself, where is your attention? And what is the point of understanding? What is the measure of understanding? It's very simple. I have to be pleased, because I am the attention. If I am pleased, then you have done the job. But I cannot be pleased by mundane things, by any arguments with that, but only by your assent. So you judge yourself on that. Whether you give me a flower or anything, I am only pleased when the essence of that doing has that height, has that special manifestation. You say, I love you very much, Mother. All right, you say. But I must see that love that you are saying or doing has that essence, that gives me joy. It's such a mutual thing between us, you can't imagine. I can't live without you and you can't live without me. It's so mutual. But from one side, it is absolutely 100% benevolent. Whether I get angry with you, whether I scold you, whether I pamper you, whether I say don't do that, if I tell you don't come very close to me, keep away. Anything that I do like that is benevolent to you. And to me, the benevolence is only one that you should be emancipated, that you should gain something out of me, that you should prosper out of me. Like the Mother Earth feels so elated to see her manifestation into these beautiful green trees. It's like that. She is nothing. We stand on her, we walk on her. Where do we see her? But she sees her in those. It's the same sort of a situation. She's the one who changes all the seasons. Rutambara means the one, the attention which changes the season. Rutu means the seasons. So all the seasons are created by her just to please us. But what do? To please her. We exhaust her, torture her, take out everything from her, pollute it, do all kinds of nonsensical things. And then she gets angry. The same thing that she is love, in the same love, she becomes angry. And then you have volcanoes and you have earthquakes and all kinds of things happening to you. But of course your mother takes time to get angry. Takes time. That doesn't mean you take time. Look after yourselves. It's very important. Suddenly you will find elevated. Some people will just elevate themselves and others will be completely cut out. So be careful, I am warning. So today is the day, previous day, to this 15th day. And the 14th day, one has to become a killer. Killer of all that is ignorance, of all that is stupid, idiotic, all that is cunning, and all that is emotional. Kill that part. Become a Sahajogi tomorrow to receive the blessings. May God bless you.
So we'll meditate now. I thought I would say something slightly different this time, where, like in the Tadniskala, the I am this Shiva, I am Shiva, that great poem or praise or prayer, where we're talking about the spirit within us that we really are, as opposed to talking about the divine out there. So it's quite an unusual thing to do. And I think even when we say, I am Shiva, we do it in a slightly sideways way, as if we're still talking about Shiva much more than we are about the self within, or we're talking about Adi Shankaracharya, who wrote it. I don't know. I mean, that's how I feel. So this one here, it only makes sense if it comes from the spirit, not from the ego. I assume my position. I take my seat in the throne room of the castle of heaven. They crown me with a golden crown adorned with many pearls. They place in my hands the scepter and orb, the symbols of authority. The time of wanting and crying is over. All the needful things are provided. They give me my sword, the sword of spiritual discrimination. They give me my spear, the weapon of intellectual perspicuity. They put on my shoulders the robe of love. I am here with my brothers and sisters, my fellow kings and queens. Let us look around us as witnesses. Let us look at this suffering world as witnesses. Let us use our compassionate power. Mother, let us use our compassionate power. So if Pretty, you could carry on with the beautiful music we were playing there. So, to finish with, I'll just read a couple of, they're not poems, but they're poetical passages by the 17th century writer Thomas Traherne. Not very well known, but he was a vicar in Herefordshire most of his life, and a very enthusiastic spiritual man. I think he was a genuinely spiritual person. And he wrote this: "You never enjoy the world aright till the sea itself floweth in your veins, till you are clothed with the heavens and crowned with the stars." The Incredible String Band, which was a group in the 1960s I was fond of at the time, put that to music. And here's another longer piece. Orient here means shining. And he's describing the sort of experience of a child perceiving the beauty of the world. The corn was orient and immortal wheat, which never should be reaped nor was ever sown. I thought it had stood from everlasting to everlasting. The dust and stones of the street were as precious as gold. The gates were at first the end of the world. The green trees, when I saw them first through one of the gates, transported and ravished me. Their sweetness and unusual beauty made my heart to leap, and almost mad with ecstasy. They were such strange and wonderful things. My grandson, the other day, he's just 7, was walking in London with his mother, and he said, did he say, if you want to know what I think, everything's a miracle. I mean, these paving stones, they're a miracle. So it's a bit like that. And he goes on to her, the men, oh, what venerable and reverend creatures did the aged seem, immortal cherubims, and young men, glittering and sparkling angels, and maids, strange seraphic pieces of life and beauty. Boys and girls tumbling in the street and playing were moving jewels. I knew not that they were born or should die, but all things abided eternally as they were in their proper places. Eternity was manifest in the light of the day, and something infinite behind everything appeared, which talked with my expectation and moved my desire. The city seemed to stand in Eden, or to be built in heaven. The streets were mine, the temple was mine, the people were mine, their clothes and gold and silver was mine, as much as their sparkling eyes, fair skins, and ruddy faces. The skies were mine, and so were the sun and moon and stars, and all the world was mine, and I the only spectator and enjoyer. I knew no churlish proprieties, nor bounds, nor divisions, but all proprieties and divisions were mine, all treasures and the possessors of them. And then he finishes more soberly. So that with much ado I was corrupted, and made to learn the dirty devices of this world, which now I unlearn, and become, as it were, a little child again, that I may enter into the kingdom of God. So I think that's rather beautiful. And I first came across that in a book my grandfather gave me when I was about 12. And it really, something about it was so different. So thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's meditation. And I'll see you, I think it's next week, actually. Jai Shri Mataji. It's good, isn't it? Mm.